Wonderful. Well, thank you all so much for joining us today. We have a very special guest joining us today, which he just introduced themselves. And we wanted to focus on elections right now. We know that there's elections going on everywhere, and there's so many important elections. I know if you're in the state of Georgia or in Maryland or New York, you have gubernatorial elections and really important Senate races going on. And there's also transit that's also on the bill in a lot of places, namely Central Florida. They have a really important transit referendum coming up, and we have a guest here who's going to explain what they're doing to organize around it. So introducing Naqiy McMullen. He's a student at Florida Atlantic University and a housing and transit advocate with Central Floridians for Public Transit. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, thank you so much, Bakari. I appreciate the opportunity.
Wonderful. So tell us about Central Floridians for Public Transit for those of us who don't know about the organization.
So Central Floridians for Public Transit is a grassroots transit advocacy organization. We were originally formed in 2019 in anticipation of this transit ballot going on the ballot in 2020. It was delayed because of the pandemic until now. So we kind of went on hiatus, but we're recently reactivated at the beginning of this year to help steer the conversation and advocate for this efforts, because transit right now is very lacking. We're entirely grassroots and volunteer based. So we're full of a lot of passionate transit riders and enthusiasts and advocates who want a better transportation system in Central Florida.
Wonderful. And you kind of alluded to it a little bit, but tell us about the transit experience in Central Florida, and also describe what Central Florida is to those who aren't as geographically savvy of the area.
So Central Florida is Orlando. Currently, the ballot is just for Orange County, but Orange County is the biggest county in the metropolitan area. It's where Disney, the theme parks, Orlando all are located. Also, we have suburban counties, which will not be recipient to improved transit, but we're hoping if we pass this transit tax, then they will reciprocate and pass their own additional funding. So currently, the transit system is very inadequate to meet the demands of workers in the area. We have a tourism-based economy, regularly ranked 50 out of 50 for median wages, and high housing costs, high transportation cost. We have a bus system with only 300 buses to meet a service area population of over 2 million. We have one single rail line, a commuter rail line to serve 9 to 5 office workers, to bring them downtown and back to their suburbs, but it doesn't actually meet the demands of the working class citizens that are the backbone of the entire economy. The biggest reason for the terrible transit is lack of dedicated funding. So it's big that we pass this tax so they actually have the ability to provide the service they need. So there's actually a huge demand for transit in Orange County in Orlando because of all the tourism that happens. But like you said, there is, when you visited, you saw all the private shuttles to serve the theme parks, the hotels. There is a private company, Mears, that they serve the theme parks and all the tourists, but do not serve the workers. So in a way, we have a segregated transportation system. The people who cannot afford cars are stuck with infrequent, slow bus service, many of them low-income people of color, many of them undocumented, a lot of refugees who they're the backbone, they work at Disney, and the whole economy would fall apart without them, and they are completely mistreated and not provided the transportation they need. There was a famous story in Orlando Sentinel, the local paper, about a bus ride that took 3 hours for a worker that would take 20 minutes in car. So it's a terrible situation we have currently, and we're really hoping that this election people will come together and pass the funding we need to change lives, really.
Absolutely. And I bet there's a lot of union workers that are also going to a lot of these parks that are suffering from this as well. Have you had any response or have you had any kind of collaborations with any of the transit labor unions there or even the unions of a lot of these theme parks?
Yeah, good point. So we're working with Unite here, the local labor union that represents all the workers, and they have been a strong push for better transportation in the area. We're working with a lot of different organizations, the unions, but we're also working with other housing organizations. We're working with the local cyclist coalition, Orlando Bike Coalition, because this transportation referendum, it's not just to fund better transit, it's to fund safer streets. Orlando is regularly ranked the most dangerous place to walk and bike. So we're working with the Safe Streets organizations. We're working with the organizations who want more affordable housing, because one way to have more affordable housing is to have cheaper transportation costs. So in addition to labor unions, we're working with a diverse set of organizations. Also, we're doing some work with churches and historically Black communities whose members are often ride transit.
That's really nice. It seems like you have a well-rounded support system out down there in Orlando. And I also saw that the mayor unveiled like a really large plan for this referendum. And I know there's also been a lot of controversy as far as the Bright Line being built in where the station was going to be located. Does that aid or does that kind of harm? Like, are you all feeling any kind of direction with that, or are you all supportive of these measures?
Well, the Bright Line is a private company. It's a whole separate conversation. Don't necessarily have the scope to go into that. But there are controversial, we have mixed feelings, but they are collaborating with local interests to build a line that would also allow local rail service to serve Universal and Disney and the theme parks. So it's like a public-private partnership. So we would prefer that it was entirely public, but right now that is the best option for delivering rail investment in the area. So we are working with Brightline in a limited capacity to support their projects.
Wonderful. And also, you mentioned the cost of living going up, and then also the Orlando metropolitan area has had tremendous growth within the past few decades. Like even a lot of the other industries, like the tech industry and the medical industry, is booming there, and it's really driving the cost up. Are there any parts of this referendum that's going to address the inequalities and especially with the affordability of transit as it relates to like the affordability of housing?
So the Mayor Demings, he is the strongest proponent. It's his plan. And they recently passed a Housing for All task force, and they are coordinating investments with that new public housing, new affordable housing near transit stops. So they started like an affordable housing trust fund, and they're going to put $10 million in that each year, and they're going to increase the amount. And so, but tax itself is not dedicating any money towards affordable housing, but it's to work closely in coordination with the new affordable housing they're building. And good point about the tremendous growth Orlando's experiencing. In a way that is making transit service worse, because it is not like dense apartments, it is suburban sprawl. It's McMansions in the middle of nowhere, that gated communities that you can't effectively serve at transit, and which makes commute times worse and more unsustainable, and it's really destroying the precious wilderness in Florida. So we are partnering with various environmental organizations like the Sierra Club, to talk about how better investment in transit would allow smarter growth and would address housing affordability. People wouldn't have to maintain as many cars. They wouldn't have to drive as far on toll roads. And potentially, if they could go car free, that would, save them a tremendous amount of money in itself. So we're really trying to use this transit referendum to build a whole system of smart growth within the region, not just suburban sprawl, but, dense, transit orientated and sustainable, affordable housing in the urban core.
Absolutely. And y'all do have a lot of toll roads down there. And
Yeah.
I bet you, without a shadow of a doubt, I-4 is still not finished.
Yeah, they just added toll lanes, $2 billion.
Okay, see. And they have that pretty train station in the middle of downtown Orlando. Okay. But one last question before we turn it over and turn it over to the audience to ask questions. If anyone in Central Florida, or more specifically Orange County, wanted to help and get involved with any of the campaigns that you all have going on, or even with just this, how could they reach out to you and join?
So you can reach out to us anywhere on social media. You can visit our website, send us the email, sign up for our newsletter. There's lots of opportunities to canvass for pro-transit champions. That's another way we've been doing outreach. We've been canvassing for the local politicians that support transit at state, local, federal, and state level. So yeah, just reach out to us. But the best thing you could do is early voting has started already. We're voting by mail. If you're in Orange County, it would be the time now to vote. But we also welcome as much volunteer opportunities. You can, one thing we're doing is sending letters to local stakeholders and local media to talk about the need for these investments. So yeah, that's the best thing we do, to reach out and sign up, follow us on social media, and just, ride transit as well. We need lots of supporters of transit. So anything you could do to help would be welcome.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, now we'll turn it over to questions from our audience. And we already have a question in the chat from Sherry. She asked is there a local Florida State NAACP or Orlando NAACP that you could partner with?
We have not partnered with them specifically. I know the mayor, he's doing, so we're local. We do not have the resources to do a large scale campaign. We're mostly partnering with the organizations who are doing much of like the printing out the signs and doing stuff like that. Our big partner was the League of Women Voters, Orange County, and more environmental organizations. But from what I understand, I think the local chapter of a AACNP supports the initiative, but cannot tell you for sure.
Wonderful. We have another question. Are you reaching out to the university and tech schools in Orlando, and do they support transit? And I want to mention this because I think UCF is way on the east side of town. So that is a good question on if the college is also supporting these measures.
Yeah, we're working with a lot of college students who rely on transit, and we're working with local UCF organizations, Senate UCF student group. They also have their own shuttle service. So we're trying to consolidate all these various private transportation systems into one that serves the public directly, instead of like serving the shuttles to the college or just solely serving theme parks that doesn't allow workers to ride. We want a transportation system that serves everyone effectively. So yeah, we're working with local colleges and really working with local college groups themselves.
Wonderful. Does anyone else have any questions or comments? Any questions or comments?
You just want to say this is fascinating. Thanks for joining us and presenting about it. And yeah, I mean, good luck with your campaign.
Thank you. Appreciate this opportunity a lot.
And we also hope that other cities in Florida would follow suit. I know Jacksonville is just done a bus rapid transit line, and it's getting good reviews. Tampa's doing something similar, and hopefully, and especially within just the recent events with Hurricane Ian, that that system's going to bounce back, and especially in Fort Myers as well. Which shout out to Lynx for actually stepping in and transporting the house's population to higher ground. That that was a really good look, and that's something that we were discussing last week with emergency management. Is that having these systems in place is really helpful, and especially for people that don't own vehicles. So, that's really good. And hopefully, there is some mainstay within this referendum to include with that. We have a question.
I have another question.
Go ahead, Sherry.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi.
Okay, great. I want to know, is the bus system there? Are the drivers, are they unionized?
Yeah, they do have a local transit union.
Is it a strong union, or is it, I guess Florida overall is probably like Georgia. Their unions are not as strong as they could possibly be. So I guess with that being the case, to know whether or not the national union has weighed in on your initiative to help get it passed. Normally ATU does.
Yeah, the member of the ATU, from what I understand, not too familiar with union organizations for them. They obviously would prefer to have more bus drivers, but I think they're trying to stay unbiased, and
Okay.
they're not allowed to officially advocate. So I'm not sure their exact position on the matter, but I used to work for Lynx myself, so I don't want to talk too much about their efforts on behalf of, trying to stay unbiased.
I agree. The reason why I asked is because when we were trying to expand transit in Gwinnett County here, the national union did more than the local union. So that's why I was wondering. Okay. Okay. Thank you. And I appreciate that background of information that you gave about the disparities and who is serving and all of that, because that's good to know. Who's the largest employer? Who's the largest employer in Orlando outside of Disney?
Outside of Disney, probably Universal. After that, probably the hospital systems and the local governments, the school systems. Yeah, we don't have a big employer besides the theme parks.
Okay, so have those three entities weighed in one way or the other?
Yeah, Disney, they're not really supportive of transit, but Universal and local chambers of commerce are very supportive of the overall effort. They need workers, and they need workers to be able to get to their theme park. So yeah, there's a lot of pro-business behind the initiative, which has been controversial for some more leftists who like, oh, this is a regressive tax. So we're trying to explain people how the working class would benefit as well as just business interest.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your efforts, and I don't know anybody in Orlando, but I'm trying to think, if I do, how I can get them to, kind of weigh in or help you in this initiative, because your election is on November 8th also, right?
Yes. So,
okay.
Yeah, we're canvassing to get people to return their ballots now.
Thank you. And keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Now, anybody else in our audience, do you all have any other elections that have anything to do with transit? If not, like I said, we have a huge gubernatorial race here in Maryland, where the governor will be one of three to hold all the cards for transit here. So that's really important. So if you are in Maryland, I see Boss Office raise his hand. Please go out and vote. For everywhere else, if you don't know what's on your ballot, you can go to this website, branch.vote. And once you go into and enter in your information, it'll show you like a sample of your ballot and literally every initiative and every issue that's going to be on that ballot. So that's a great way to look at what's going on and to also research, because the worst thing we could do is go in blindly and not know who any of these folks or any of these candidates running are. Sarah, you had a question.
Right. You asked if anyone had transportation issues on the ballot. We have a Proposition L to reauthorize our half-cent sales tax that goes about 45% to Muni, our local transit agency. It has been widely endorsed. A couple things, a big, flyers you get in the mail have gone out that speak only of the fixing of potholes, which is about 13% of the take. But the feeling is that transit is so, unpopular because the firemen endorsed that one, not. And another concern has been that they routinely expand or try to sustain the muni budget by passing a funding proposition. That one, the agency didn't even campaign for it. That one failed because partly low turnout and a lot of out-of-town money coming in for conservative causes. So we're a little worried about it. That's it.
Very, very interesting. And I know that I know Muni has been trying to modernize and also expand, and then also with the talk of the Central Subway as well. So yeah, we hope that goes through. Bossoff, you're next.
Yes. So speaking of Maryland, we have, as you know, a local election as well in Montgomery County. And there's also the election in the big city next door in Washington, D.C. And there's no transit initiative on the ballot as such, but the elections will have important implications for transit fights going forward. So here in Montgomery County, I've talked about this before on these calls. We've had an ongoing Better Buses campaign for free buses along with frequent service, better service, route redesign to make sure it actually serves people, where they live and where they need to go. We have won some partial victories and some, setbacks. So after being free, starting from, after the pandemic, fares were reintroduced, but we won a reduction of the fare. First, we delayed the introduction of fares for months. And then we won a reduction of the fare from $2 to $1. And it's now free for seniors and youth. So we've won some kind of partial victories. But the composition of the council is changing. This is one of the places where the Democratic primary is effectively the election. Republicans win, like they're lucky if they get double-digit percentage votes. So we have two new progressive council members coming in, and we have a chance to revisit this whole issue in the coming year. So there's potentially good opportunity here in Montgomery County. Now, next door in DC, politics has become increasingly confrontational, and it's almost become like a test case for the whole country in ways, with all kinds of dark money coming in and a trend of what I would characterize as Republicans running in Democratic primaries. Because DC is another of those places where you need that D label to win. But the right has become increasingly organized and They ran candidates in a bunch of the Democratic primaries. They lost the high-profile races they were in, but after ugly campaigns. And again, we have what could be a more progressive council coming in than what we had, even though we've had a progressive council, but they're in constant war with the mayor, and we likely have a progressive, more progressive council coming in. But the general election is not going to be just a shoe-in for the progressive candidates, because there's again someone who lost their Democratic primary running as an independent, who takes a lot of developer money, etc. And he has been on council, so he's been a an incumbent council member, and we could still have an ugly vote, and that's actually relevant again for transit, because we have this bill called the Metro for DC Act that the DC Green New Deal Coalition is pushing. It's the next best thing to free transit. It's $100 subsidy provided by the city for every person who holds what's called a smart trip card, which is our Metro card in DC. And the reason it's done that way is for our metro system, WMATA, to go to free transit would require not just DC, but Montgomery and PG County, Maryland, Arlington and Fairfax, Virginia, and the state DOTs, Maryland and Virginia, to all support it because of the way the Metro board is structured. But the best thing DC can do is this $100 subsidy. And that bill has passed committee, but the chair of the council, who's kind of conservative, hasn't brought it up for a vote. And it's quite likely, given the timing, that it may not come up for a vote before the election. So then the question becomes, how do we fight for it again next year? And this November's election may determine that.
Oh wow, like y'all are gonna have DC packed out if that just so happens to get passed through. But wow, shout out to y'all. Like, hopefully everything goes well with that. And shout out to the Better Buses campaign. I know they were trying to campaign to get bus only lanes out on Highway 29, where they have like the beginning parts of the bus rapid transit system. So hopefully that goes through. But Naqiy, any last words before we end the live? Or not the end of the live, before we end the recording?
No, just want to thank you again so much for having me the opportunity and spotlighting important work we're doing down here in Orlando. So thank you.
No problem. Thank you so much. Naqiy McMullen from Central Floridians for Public Transit. We thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And